Welcome in, everybody. It is Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing, Sirius XM, Channel 90, NASCAR Radio. I'm your host, Chris Childers. It is week number 3 of this show, week number 4 of the NASCAR season. It has been a lot of fun. We've had some great guests the last couple of weeks. Chris Buescher has been a part of the show. Matt McCall has been a part of the show. Les Ebert. It has been really neat, especially for me as a race fan, just to get inside this team, to understand what's going on, the work that's going in from a strength and conditioning standpoint, from a diet standpoint, from a crew chief standpoint, a mechanical standpoint. What I love about this show, and hopefully you do as the listener, we aren't just talking like all the nuts and bolts about what's going on in a given race. We want to go as in-depth to all the nuances. From sponsorship, we got a representative from Consumer Cellular today to talk about activation, a lot of different areas of NASCAR that you see presented on Sunday and how it all gets done. That's what I love about it. We have a great guest to kick things off, the Senior Director of Communications, Brandon Lee with RFK. Brandon's a guy I've got to know over the last couple of years, just kind of bumming around the races and saying, hey, can I get in the pit box? Hey, can I get a hat? It's always good to be around Brandon. Brandon, what's up, man? Welcome to RFK Racing, the show. I know you're Mr. You put it together, but welcome to the air here.
That's right. Yeah. What's up, Chris? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, as you said, we're in a few weeks into this deal, so it's been fun so far. And as you said, just going behind the curtain to show folks what it's like to put on this operation in racing. So it's been a good run so far.
Been a really good run. We are 3 weeks into the season, going to week 4. We're on the West Coast. Vegas just happened, which kind of a mixed bag of results. The 17, that was unfortunate. The 6 ended up doing pretty well. Didn't qualify great, but ended up putting himself at a top 15 position by the end, finished 13th, so we could talk about that in a little bit. But Vegas, a little different animal, Brandon, from what we saw week 2 in Atlanta and week 1 in Daytona. How do we feel from the RFK side going into week 4?
Yeah, that's right. If you look back on Vegas, it to your point, it was different. It's kind of a tale of two stories for us, really. If you look at qualifying on Saturday, kind of to flip the page backwards, Chris and the 17 team unloaded with really good speed. He was P1 in his group there in qualifying and ended up qualifying 9th. Then looked to Sunday during the race and had a good run going. He was, top 10, and there was an early yellow there. We took 2 tires and then got back going. He actually restarted P1. Unfortunately, lost the right front, so our kind of results flipped there on us, unfortunately, and Chris was done early, so that's how his Vegas race went. And then if you flip to Brad, it was kind of reversed, honestly. Didn't unload with quite the same speed. I think he qualified 25th, and then we get to the race, and they worked on it all race long. We're trying to figure out what was going on. And then as it turns out, had a couple of cautions late, got some track position, went on to finish 13th. So it's interesting. Sometimes what you think is going to happen early in the week, it kind of reversed for us, unfortunately and fortunately, depending on, which car you're looking at. But, as an organization, obviously we want to do a little more than that. But, I guess you'll take it and move on to the next week. So we got Phoenix coming up.
You take it, you move on. Phoenix coming up, which coincidentally is the place where the championship's been decided for many years. So an interesting track, certainly a track that's got a reputation, a new challenge for the team. I do want to go back to Vegas, though, because like we said, we go inside RFK. We want people to know what's going on. Give us an idea of the aftermath of the whole ordeal with the 17. As a spectator, as a fan, bad words were coming out of my mouth. I can't imagine what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's unfortunate either way, no matter how you spin it. In the moment, obviously we all see it, right? He hits the wall, not quite sure what the damage is, comes down pit road. I mean, he limps down there, and you could hear it on the radio, and, the guys are like, hey, he's done for sure. And it actually, in that moment, which this doesn't always happen, Chris got out right there. For us, that's unfortunately a trip to the care center. And the guys are just gutted, right? I mean, you're loading the car back up with 50 laps into the race. The car was really destroyed too. So it took a lot of time to get it, honestly, to a point where we could load it up. But yeah, going back, obviously nobody wants to make a mistake like that and see your race end early. Unfortunately, it did, and I guess thankfully it's early enough in the year to where those guys they say no, we get it, we messed up and we got to move on and learn from it. So that's what you have to do in the sport, because you got to get right back up and go again next week, and that's the reality of where we're at. So.
Brandon Lee is with us, the Senior Director of Communications for RFK. It is Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing on Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio Channel 90. I'm curious, the talk inside the RFK headquarters right now, there was so much anticipation going into the season. There was so much hype. The first three races, at least from a results standpoint, maybe not where the team wants to be. Is it hard to put the entire season in perspective? Do people get a little antsy right now? Take us inside the attitude Monday through Friday that we don't see on race day.
Yeah, Chris, that's a good question. And it's interesting because, the first 2 weeks, to your point, they're speedway races, right? So a lot of people in the sport, if you ask them, hey, what's the outlook on the year? They're going to tell you we're not going to know till Vegas, right? And so we're just now coming off that. So, yeah, obviously every race is important, and our results weren't what we wanted them to be those first 2 weeks. But if you kind of take a step back, you can reset and look and say, all right, Vegas was kind of week one in some ways. The points don't reflect that, obviously, but in some ways that was week one, and now we're going to Phoenix, which is a totally different racetrack, and there's always a time to reset. So, yeah, I mean, the demeanor, the attitude is what it is, right? We know where we're at. Good news is there's 38 races, and you have a lot of time to make up ground on it. But I will say the good news is, a lot of these tracks we're going to where we finished strong last year. So our spring outlook this year for these racetracks versus this time last year, probably a little different depending on how we improve from race 1 to race 2 last year at the tracks that we go back to for a second time. And Phoenix is one of those. I think, and Chris actually said this in his interview after the wreck the other day. He said, if you'd have told me 2 years ago I'd wrecked out early at Vegas and go to Phoenix, I'd have been mad. But now I'm actually happy because he's coming off a fifth place finish there and actually ran well last year, led some laps. So it's all perspective. It depends on how you look at it. But I mean, like you said, the reality is it's another opportunity, another chance to keep going. And we're coming off a pretty strong run there last year. So I think everybody's excited and honestly just ready to put it behind them and see what we can do.
From my perspective, doing this show for you guys and being a fan, I think the cars look really good. I think maybe a little bad luck, certainly the mistake, you got to own that with the 17 last week, but the cars are running well and it's a long season. So to me, RFK is going to be right there when it's all said and done. And certainly, like you said, Vegas is a good barometer, but Chris finished P10 or P9, I should say, in qualifying. And Brad obviously got things figured out by the end of the race. And really in the third stage, I thought he was running as well as anybody. So it looks like the cars are in a really good position. Tell me about Vegas. I know we got some great guests coming up today. We got Mike Herman Jr., who's the spotter for the 17. Carter Nance, who does great things with Consumer Cellular, who's going to be on the number 6 car this weekend as the primary sponsor. Give us an idea. You mentioned it a little bit about the overall team confidence. Buescher obviously ran well last year, as you mentioned, but Brad, everybody, what's the level of confidence going in that a victory lane isn't out of the option when it comes to the Vegas result this weekend?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, I think last year, Brad was I think he was in the top 10 late in that race last year, and then had something actually happen on the last couple laps there. Otherwise, we were, had 2 top 10s to end the season. So, and then look back to Chris, and like I said, he was, he led a lot of laps there, was really strong, ended up finishing top 5. So, you really, at least from my perspective, you just go off what you did last, and obviously they have notes that they, run back through. So for us to look back and say we just came off that race just a handful of months ago, I think you'll take a lot of that and use it as momentum going in because, last spring, obviously we didn't have quite the same finishes, but it just proves the amount of work you can do in that short amount of time. And obviously the team and everybody in competition up the street, they work hard to do that. So I would say, it's just another opportunity for us to, have some good finishes and really capitalize off what we just did last. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Listen to this guy. He's a radio star, absolute radio star, making his debut. Brandon Lee with us, the Senior Director of Communications for RFK. They asked me, they're like, do you think Brandon's going to be good on the air? I was like, have you met the guy? I think he's going to be outstanding. Job well done. Take
Awesome.
a bow. We got some more great guests coming up next. Mike Herman Jr., right around the corner. Spotter for the 17. Stick around. It is Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. We are back here. It's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Week number 4 of the NASCAR season. We are going to Phoenix. First 3 weeks have been interesting. We had those 2 plate races, which were a little bit wild. Last week, Vegas, we were trying to figure out what's going on. The 17 started well, didn't go great, didn't finish with the pit issues, and the 6 car obviously got better as the race went on. So I think there is a quiet confidence coming out of the garage. Let's talk to one of the spotters right now for the 17. The spotter for Chris Buescher, Mike Herman Jr., our guest. Mike, it's good to have you on Backstretch Banter. How are you?
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Doing pretty good.
So from your perspective, we just talked about it. You know, the radio guy is talking, and Brandon gave his perspective. From your perspective as a spotter, are you pleased? Are you upset? Where are you with the progress in the 17 car so far?
Well, honestly, I don't really feel like our season has started yet. So, you got Daytona, Atlanta, the 2 plate races, which we put a ton of work into those type of races. But then we were looking forward to going to Vegas. Obviously, it was a short day for us there. So we're just going to push the reset button and act like the season starts again this weekend in Phoenix.
You've done it long enough to know that it's a marathon and not a sprint. So after the first 3, you really don't know who you are. You've done this for 11 seasons with the 17 car alone. Been with Chris for a few years. You worked with Ricky. You've been around this program for a while. From your perspective, how has this program grown in the last couple of years since they've added the K to RFK? From your perspective up there as a spotter, how would you talk about the progress of what you see day in, day out in the shop there at RFK?
Well, it's been a good progression ever since, Brad come on board. The processes that we do and the way we manage the week and the way we prepare for races and the time that we all spend together talking racing and trying to get better at what we do and the goal of trying to win races and get to winning races and in championships. That process has been really good. So it's also obviously been here since 2014. So, there's still signs of Roush racing still around all around us and to merge the 2 together and with the way we do things and the way the shop has transformed itself, especially in the next gen era. So it was a good time for for things to change around the shop and the processes and where things are located and how things are done. So it's been cool to see. So I think we're well positioned for the future.
I think so too, and I think everybody in the racing world can acknowledge that and sees what's going on with RFK, whether it's the crew chiefs, the pit crews, the drivers, everything from technology, the investment in the vehicles, everything certainly is progressing in a beautiful way. As we talked to Mike Herman Jr., the spotter for the number 17 car, you mentioned how you want to do everything you can to get better, and you want to get better at your job. How would you describe where you were your first year as a spotter to what you've learned to where you're at now in year number 11 with the 17?
Yeah, I think about those 11 years and coming off a bad day that we had in Vegas and thinking about, I've kept my eyes on the 17 car for nearly 400 races now, and there's been highs and lows. We've won races and we've had bad days before. That's by far not the first last place finish that we've ever had. So you realize that the Cup racing and this series is such peaks and valleys. It's a roller coaster. So you think back on your time and those prior 400 races and know that things are going to get better. I mean, we could turn around and win this weekend at Phoenix. But as far as that natural progression for me, it's you think back 2013 when I first had my first full-time Cup job and the difference that it is in 2024. It's tremendous. The amount of input that the spotter role has now and how that's evolved over the years. And I try to feel like that I've helped progress that along, but you just want to be part of the success of the team and making things better because you can play a vital role.
You play a huge role, and for anybody that's listened to a radio during a race, they understand how important the spotter is. I mean, you're the eyes and the ears of the driver. You do something that there's no way in hell I could do it. The way you're reading, reacting, talking. I was at the Atlanta race and I was listening to the 6 spotter, And I'm like, how the hell do you talk that fast and communicate that fast? And there's got to be a good relationship with the driver, because quite frankly, it would annoy the hell out of me. I mean, all the constant this and that. What is that like? Just getting the brain to meet the mouth and doing it effectively.
That's a good question. I think that's just something that's a God-given talent, I guess. It's almost like being an auctioneer or just doing it. Like, I've been averaging probably spotting 130 some races a year for the past, 15, 16 years or something like that. So you just do it so much, and you're always trying to, make your delivery better. But it's crazy how. So I race myself as a short track driver, and my spotter that spotted for me for a long time, he spots for Denny Hamlin now. So he's wanted to,
oh wow,
been spotting for Denny since, I don't know, before I've been with the 17. So he's done really, really well for himself. And think about how that has changed from when he spotted for me to what it is now. The modern day Cup driver and the amount of information that they can process is really more amazing to me than how we're able to deliver that much information. But you're just constantly trying to paint the picture of what's going on and how to navigate through to have the best day you can.
Like I said, you do something I could not do. I could not talk that fast, see things that quick, get it to my mouth that quick, be able to keep the drive. Like, I'd probably crash a guy out in 2 laps. I wouldn't know what the hell's going on, and he'd be in the wall, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. You really have to focus. You really have to be honed in to be focused for 3+ hours. And I know you get a little break maybe on restarts and stuff like that. Is there a routine before the race? Is there something you like to eat, drink? Because you do have to be mentally clear.
Yeah. Personally, myself, I like for the morning to be peaceful. You get a lot of good luck messages from friends and family and things, and I like that. But, you just try to have a very, very peaceful morning, things to be routine, because it's the calm before the storm. I don't do a lot of walking and traveling around a facility on race day, because, we got a mentally taxing job coming up, and I know how I feel after the race. When I get back to the airplane to come home, it's like a big exhale, and sometimes you're, especially after a plate race, you're just mentally drained because you are hyper focused on what you're doing all the time. And it's unique because of how much we focus on our car and the bigger picture. So you're constantly looking at your car and a wide focus. And I don't know, that's just, it can be mentally draining, but you really have to stay focused, or you're going to miss things that you shouldn't.
It is not for an ADHD person, I'll tell you that. I mean, it is pretty amazing what you guys are able to do. And I think it's one of the hardest jobs in sport. I really do. I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but watching it, listening to it, really difficult gig. And I think the ones that master it are incredible. And you've obviously done it long enough, to 11 years to have longevity, that you've mastered it. Let's break. We'll talk more about this. Mike Herman Jr. is our guest, spotter for the 17. We got a lot to get into. It's week number 4, NASCAR season, Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. We are back here. It is Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I'm Chris Childers. Love doing this show. It's so cool for me as a NASCAR fan. We get to go behind the scenes, understand what these guys are thinking, what they're going through, the work that goes in. For you in particular, and Mike Herman Jr. is our guest here on Sirius XM Backstretch Banter. I want to know, Mike, as the spotter of the 17, what do you do when you're not spotting? I mean, right now you're in the shop. I got to imagine you got a desk, you got an office, but people want to know Monday through Friday, what does the spotter do?
Well, it's a nonstop process. I mean, when Vegas, when obviously we were done early, the first thing I went back to the airplane and pulled the computer out and started prep work for Phoenix, getting that stuff wrapped up. I try to stay more than a week ahead on prep work. I help Chris with his video review and breaking down a lot of analytical stuff like that. So I'm kind of like an offensive defensive coordinator.
Sure.
On Monday, breaking down film. So I try to, put a package together for him that helps cut down and focus his study into where it's important for us and what we need to do to be better. So like for this week, it's been, focused on getting ready for Phoenix. So we go back and break down each restart and, how the chess pieces moved and what we could do better and what we did right and things like that. So it's a quick process to get turned around Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but go through 2 or 3 meetings during the week to break down post race and then pre-race coming for the race coming up and seeing what our strategy plan is, because that's one of the biggest parts of my job is to help execute the crew chief and the engineers race strategy. So you put a lot of effort into getting ready for the next race.
You brought up something really interesting to me, and that's film study in NASCAR. My normal job is I do college football talk for SiriusXM, and so much film study from coaches, from players, quarterbacks. What are you looking at on film? What are you trying to study specifically about yourself that you can learn? And how much are you looking at tendencies of other drivers in different, on straightaways and corners, whatever? That whole film study to me in NASCAR is a bit fascinating. And I got to believe a lot of it has to do with where you are on the track and teamwork and Fords and Chevys and Toyotas. But what are you focusing on when you put together that film? What's the focus for Buescher to try to learn?
Yeah, and film study's been around NASCAR ever since Cole Trickle.
Sure.
Learned a lot on watching ESPN. So, it's been around for a very long time because of our races being televised. Drivers and teams have always went back and pushed play on watching a race. But years ago, I realized that, just going and pushing play on the race and watching for a couple hours on end, it kind of ended up being mindless, and you would miss the points in there that you really needed to focus on. So I go in there and chop things up and really clip it down to where the important stuff. A lot of my work is centered around restarts because that's where the puzzle pieces move the most as far as driver spotter. From the rest of the team's perspective, like Chris's focus is always on how to get the race car to drive better, how to have the faster race car, and pace and lap time and that kind of thing, where my focus is on his optimization as a driver. What can we do from a racing standpoint? And I'm a racer to the core, and that's, the short track driver in me still lives vicariously through him. So, I look at the race like from a driver's perspective and what can we do to be better racers? How can we make better moves or counter other people's moves? And you made a good point about, tendencies, so it's 50-50. We're probably 50% on what we can do to be better. And then the other 50% is learning other people's tendencies, because a lot of times it's like a video game playing AI. The human will make the same moves 9 out of 10 times. So if you can learn that and be ready to predict it, and I feel like we were ready at the very start of the race. We had to make a move to block a run. As soon as the green flag dropped at Vegas, it worked out good for us. So you have to be ready for that stuff, and you just can't do it blindly. You have to put in the prep work.
Are there drivers that piss you off more than others when you go back and watch the film and you see that every week they're doing maybe the same thing and a little bit reckless, like Ross Chastain, somebody like that? No offense, Ross, if you're listening, but is there anything, like when you look at it, do you ever like get a little colorful in the language? Like, this guy again did something like that? Like, how often does that happen behind the scenes?
Sure. I mean, it's we're all competitors out there. And
all right, so give me some names. Come on.
No,
I'm kidding, Mike. I'm kidding.
It's not hard to go and pick out the names. It's not hard to go and go back a week in time to Atlanta and figure things out. So I mean, it's you build that notebook, and how you're going to race guys, and how they're going to race you, and that's how you. Chris is probably the most respectful guy on the racetrack, when it comes to racing and that kind of thing. So he's got a lot of respect from a lot of guys, and most people race him really, really well. But you're ready for the ones that don't.
My local track is the Fairgrounds track here in Nashville, which is a awesome short track. They're trying to revitalize it and get it back and going. I got to imagine spotting at a place like the fairgrounds is a lot different than doing it in Atlanta or Vegas or Daytona, depending on the size of the track. Like Bristol's coming up, for example. Describe your day on Sunday and your job Sunday at Bristol compared to Daytona when there's so much to see compared to that little bowl. I always like to call Bristol like the circus with the little motorcycle guys going around in the ring kind of thing.
Yep.
So how does your job differ depending on the track?
Well, like Bristol per se, the short track racer in me, you get hyped up for that. I mean, Bristol's my favorite racetrack and favorite place to spot because, I still do a lot of short track racing. My favorite race of the year is the Snowball Derby in Pensacola, Florida. So when you go to Bristol, you kind of have that mentality, and it's going to be about just straight up racing. How are we going when the green flag drops, whether it's on the initial start or a restart, it's just straight up racing. Where at Daytona or any other big track, there's going to be so many other things that come into play, like green flag pit cycles are so crucial. So picking out your marks to where you're going to help the driver lift to get to pit road and maximizing our time on entry and exit, and then what to do after you blend back up on the racetrack. How are we going to get back going as quickly as possible? How are you going to pick up your help? So there's so many different things from that perspective that you have to look for at the big track versus going to a short track like Bristol, where it's just pure racing. We're going to be able to just race hard here and what to do to make the right moves to win at a place like that. It's just a little bit different.
I was watching a show the other night. It was the Formula One Netflix show. And the only reason I bring it up is because the spotter for Daniel Ricciardo was on the radio, and Daniel's like, I want radio silence for a little while. Just let me focus on the last couple laps. Can that happen in NASCAR? Are things too crowded for a guy just to be like, let me drive, let me hone in, or you constantly have to be communicating?
Yeah, each driver is different, but, with the 17 team and the unit that we have now, and the team that we from top to bottom is just really, really strong. And it starts with Chris driving the car. We're constantly, feeding information to him to be able to execute the race as quickly as possible. You also know when you've been doing it as long as I have, and, even going back to when I drove and when I didn't want to be talked to, you just know what the scenarios are in the race and what we're trying to accomplish here, and whether information is going to be good information or not. But there'll very rarely be a lap of silence on our radio. There's always going to be some type of information. It might just be, if a fan's listening in, it might just be a sequence of numbers, which is just a lap time of our car and what's in front of us and what's behind us and that kind of thing. But there's pretty much going to be talk. Nowadays, a race car driver, if he goes more than a lap or two of silence, and he thinks the radio is not working. That's how much information's flowing.
How often do you get to race yourself? You said that you still do it. You're a Snowball Derby champion, which is, I think, one of the cooler events. How much do you get to do it? And do you think staying sharp as a racer helps you do your job better?
Well, unfortunately, I've not been able to drive a race car myself. The Snowball Derby wins was as a spotter as well, and I've been fortunate enough to win 3 Snowball Derbies as a spotter, and those mean a lot to me. As far as driving myself, I haven't raced since 2008.
Okay.
There's been some opportunities along the way, but each time I have an opportunity, I got to stand an offer to go race at Bowman Gray Stadium. Yeah. And, with a friend of mine that owns sportsman cars, and it's just hard for me to be able to fit that in. And when I have our season is so much of a grind with very limited amount of time off that it's hard to say, especially to the family, or we're not going to go to the beach, I'm going racing. You know what I mean? It's tough. So I wish I could still race more than.
Does it scratch the itch enough though, being a spotter as opposed to being in the car? Like, do you still get that satisfaction?
Yeah,
that
you do.
rush?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
It's obviously it's not the same as being able to drive, but it's the next best thing. I feel like I raced the race afterwards. So it's not the same, but yeah, it's close.
Mike Herman Jr., spotter for the 17. Awesome to meet you. Great to talk to you. Thanks a lot for the time, man. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on anytime.
Awesome to be with Mike, and looking forward to Phoenix this week with the number 17 car. I got a good feeling about it. I really do. I think they're going to bounce back in a big way, and that car has been running really strong. for the first 3 weeks of the season. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Carter Nance with Consumer Cellular is going to join us next right here. They are the primary sponsor for the 6 car this weekend. We'll talk to him next on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Welcome back. It is Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing, SiriusXM NASCAR Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. We are having a lot of fun previewing Phoenix, getting ready for week number 4 of the NASCAR season, hoping for good results from the number 6 and the number 17. And we are talking right now to a guy who is really hoping that the number 6 has a good result. It would be nice to see his company featured in Victory Lane this weekend in Phoenix. His name is Carter Nance, the VP of Brand and Creative Strategy for the great company at Consumer Cellular. Carter, it's good to talk to you, man. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks so much for having us. And we are looking forward to a great weekend here in Phoenix.
I just saw the commercial for this weekend with Brad Keselowski, which I thought was really cool. I was learning more about Consumer Cellular and how cheap it is to get a good cell phone deal. And I guess you could cut off almost 50% from the rate. And that's what you guys are doing with the car, right?
That's right. Up to half. Yeah. Our brand proposition, value proposition is really that with us, you get the same fast, reliable coverage you're going to get on one of the big 3 networks, but we can quite often save you up to half. And so the point here is if we can cut up to half off a car, imagine what we could do to your cell phone bill.
The car looks really cool.
Thank you.
I have heard rumors that it's going to be in Phoenix, that it's going to be out there in the fan zone, perhaps, which would be really cool. It's an awesome vehicle. It really is. And for those that haven't seen it yet, it looks really, really cool. It's a race car almost cut in half, almost half, right? Which is really awesome. So we'll get into, why RFK and the activation and all that in a minute, but I really want to know more about Consumer Cellular because my wife and I talk about this all the time. We pay out the nose for our cell phone bill, but we do it because we feel like we have to. Like you have to have one of those main carriers in order to, get service, in order to have coverage. When I was looking at the rates for Consumer Cellular, I said, hold on a second. This is interesting. How do you do it? How do you deliver that quality for such a good rate?
Sure. I think one of the key points is we are able to partner with a big carrier to get access to their network.
Yes.
So we give you the same tier 1 coverage that a customer would get from that carrier, but we don't have to pay for the upkeep of that network. That's one reason we can pass the savings along to you. And one other thing, quite honestly, is since we were started in 1995, we started as a no contract carrier. We wanted to bring service and affordability to the category. And we found that we collected a very solid following that happened to be over 50. They appreciated great service.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you have a great proposition here. And you tend to have a group of consumers that doesn't consume a ton of data, right? So if you want an unlimited plan, we can sell you an unlimited plan. But we also have all kinds of affordable plans that have less data, but you can start at $20, start at $25, depending on your need. So really, it's about paying for what you need. The big 3 carriers don't really have those lower cost plans because they have millions of customers, many of which are younger, many of which consume a ton of data. So they have to balance out, the old and the new. And that's how we can give you great value.
Pretty awesome. It really is. It is a company for anybody to look at. Everybody's got a cell phone. So if you want good service at a good price, Consumer Cellular seems to be an incredible way to go. And the reason I know about the company is because of your sponsorship with RFK. I'm really eager to talk to you, and I find this side of NASCAR to be really important. And obviously, it's huge because the teams are nothing without their sponsors. They need to have sponsorship in order to, be able to run these cars, to be able to pay their bills, to pay their staffs, etc. So sponsorship is at the heart of everything they do. I know why they work hard to get sponsors. I'm curious, though, from the sponsor's perspective, what draws you to NASCAR? Being on a hood, having a guy driving, super fast around an oval and having that Consumer Cellular on the hood. There's a lot of ways you can spend your money. There's a lot of ways you can get people's attention. For you specifically, at Consumer Cellular, what's the value of attracting a NASCAR audience?
Yeah, for one, it starts with it's a great place to find our audience. I think on any given weekend, you're going to find 2.5 million adults 50 plus that are tuning into NASCAR. We know that it's a very loyal fan base. And so if you give people a great product or service in this environment, typically they're willing to take a shot, give you a try. So we're certainly counting on that. It's also, and I think you alluded to it, it's one thing to run ads for years, which we've run a lot of ads over the years. We've built a nice business doing that. But it's a whole different ballgame when you show up at the arena and you are on the side of a car and you are on the headsets. And we can talk more about that in a minute because we're very excited about it. But in this way, we're really right in the intersection of the whole sport and the competition in ways that you can't be in a lot of other sports.
Well, I want to go right down that. I'm curious what you're talking about. The headsets, Phoenix this weekend. What are you doing?
Yeah, no, we first of all, we'll get into RFK, I assume, and how awesome they are. But this was part of the deal that we worked out. We wanted to be visible across the team. And so, in our case, we've got TJ Majors and we've got Matt McCall, and basically the whole crew has us on the headsets. So you see when you look at the headsets this weekend, hopefully when they're running up front and the TV interviewer goes to interview Matt McCall, he'll pull aside the headset and you'll see our logo on the side. So it really speaks to, again, us being at the intersection of this team in a sport where communication is vital to the success of the organization. So we're really excited
awesome.
to be there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing that this weekend in Phoenix. Consumer Cellular is what we're talking about. They are the primary sponsor this weekend for Brad Keselowski and the number 6 Ford Mustang. Carter Nance, our guest, the VP of Brand and Creative Strategy for the great company, Consumer Cellular. We've been learning all about it here for the last couple of minutes. So RFK was the team you chose to partner with, and it's a team with incredible tradition. Obviously, Brad Keselowski has added a little something to that tradition. Yes. Why was RFK the road that you chose when it came to this is the car we want to be a part of?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons. I'll break a few down here.
Sure.
As you said, tradition, innovation, like great innovation coming through this company. Look at Brad and what he's brought to it. Brad is a man of many talents and brings a lot of innovation to the crew. Brad's experience. Brad's been around for a while, right? So of those adults 50 plus that I mentioned that are tuning in have kind of watched Brad grow through the sport. So there was a great connection there. Also, one big part of our company and our service is we have 100% US based call centers. And so we are an American company. It's very important to our customer base that when they need something or they want to walk through a bit of technology or talk about their bill, they can pick up the phone, call. They're going to talk to somebody in one of our 6 call centers in the US. And so we wanted to partner with a company that was driving an American car, quite frankly. It was just a better match for us. So Ford, great company, great cars, and yeah, it all kind of fits. Then it comes down to chemistry. We had great chemistry with the team. They like our crazy ideas.
Yeah,
like the convertible, and they do a lot of great social media. So that's a huge benefit for us to be able to hook into their social media prowess.
Let's talk more about the convertible a little bit and whose idea it was and how that thing got executed. We'll do that when we come back. We are talking with Carter Nance, the Vice President of Brand and Creative Strategy for Consumer Cellular. It's Phoenix Week. We are talking about the number 6 Ford Mustang which is sponsored by Consumer Cellular. We got more coming up right here. Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. I'm Chris Childers, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. We're back. Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing, Sirius XM Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. Episode number 3. It's so much fun to be doing this program and for it to be seen on the weekends, Friday night into the weekend on Racing America. We've had a lot of fun talking about the RFK brand and what this team has done, the progression they've made over the last couple of years, the technology, just a lot of cool things they've done. Very innovative, I think this team has been, and that's certainly something that our guest Carter Nance was talking about last segment that attracted Consumer Cellular to RFK and the great partnership they've had up to this point. We're going to see the activation in a big way this weekend in Phoenix. One thing we mentioned a few minutes ago was this cool convertible. It is a race car that has essentially made this awesome Consumer Cellular convertible where they took just about half off the top, which goes along with their business strategy and their slogan. And it was really kind of cool to look at the videos and the commercials. And I know they're airing something this weekend. Was this your idea? Was this somebody on staff? And how hard was it to make the convertible work? Or was it something RFK was like, absolutely, let's do it?
Sure thing. So this was a collaboration. We have an internal agency, pardon me, and we have a couple external agency partners. So our external agency partner, they're the mayor, they're out of Nashville. Shout out to them. They brought this idea to us. I think stepping back, we wanted to enter NASCAR a bit differently than some recent sponsors. And so I think we noticed that a lot of NASCAR advertising had gone pretty vanilla and not a lot was breaking through. It felt very corporate. And so we are a company that has fun when we can. You know, we have a speak about us. So we wanted to do something more memorable, a little different, but also something that maybe was rooted in the history of NASCAR. So we gave that brief off to our teams. Agency came back with this idea. To be honest, the first time I saw it, I was a little apprehensive. I wanted to make sure it was authentic. We went back, did a little history. As many of you who are listening probably know, NASCAR ran a convertible series up until about 1962.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, again, it was a great intersection of our kind of core value proposition. And it was something that we felt like would connect with a core NASCAR audience, especially fans that have been around for a long time, that might have remembered seeing photos and of these convertibles. And so, yeah, we shared it up at RFK one day up there in Concord. And this is a great example of how collaborative RFK is. They walked Jeremy, the VP of competition, right off the shop floor, showed it to him on the screen. Do you think you can do this? And he's like, yeah. A week later, we're basically looking at this car, man. And then
that's awesome.
From there, we said, hey, let's go. We're going to come film you guys. We filmed Brad and Matt having some fun with it, did a photo shoot. And yeah, it's kind of taking on a life of its own. We're really excited to debut it this weekend to a much broader audience. And yeah, we have a fan who's already reached out who wants the wrap on her car. She has a Mustang, so we're looking into that. So it's a lot of fun.
Really cool. That wrap is awesome. I love it. And if you can make another one, I'd put it on mine as well. I think it's pretty sweet. The Consumer Cellular wrap. We're talking to Carter Nance, the VP of Brand and Creative Strategy for Consumer Cellular. They are the primary sponsor for the number 6 Ford Mustang, Consumer Cellular Ford Mustang, this weekend in Phoenix. Phoenix is one of the races you focused on. Why and where else is the company going this year with RFK? And I think listeners would actually like to know the thought behind where you go and where you want to be seen.
Yeah, I think that's where we go, where we want to be seen as a collaboration with RFK. Mm-hmm. So certainly have markets that we're interested in, and RFK has a number of sponsors that they have to accommodate. So it's kind of moving chess pieces around. I think We got to a place we're very happy. So obviously we started in Phoenix. We go to Kansas, then Nashville and Homestead. So it's a good geographical spread across the country. I mean, we're active. We have customers in all 50 states. So we're pretty happy with the geographical distribution of it. We got some really great races. Florida is a big market for us. So really excited to have a playoff race down in Florida and Homestead. And that's kind of how we looked at it.
For those that don't know, a lot of times the sponsors will bring employees or representatives, families to the races. They'll sit in the pit box with the crew chief and kind of get that really cool firsthand experience. How many lucky ones this weekend? How excited is the company to be involved in this? And has it created a buzz within the walls of Consumer Cellular?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We actually launched this a little over a month ago. We brought a show car out to one of our main call centers, cranked that baby up. People were loving it. And in terms of this race, we will have an activation team out there with the convertible in the fan zone. So we'll have dozens of employees both participating and watching the event in the grandstand. So yeah, we couldn't be more excited. It's going to be a great race.
Little bit of pleasure, a little bit of work.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, yeah. Well, it's going to be mostly pleasure, right? I mean, getting out there and getting to spread the word of Consumer Cellular and being around the great NASCAR fans. I was in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, not years ago, for the race. A couple weeks ago for that crazy race, and it is amazing how many people get involved with those activations in the fan zone and how they matter to people. And I think obviously you guys did your due diligence on this. The brand loyalty matters. I know this is an RFK fan. I like to purchase the things that are on the car. I like to purchase the things that are on the fire suit. And, I'm really curious if, or what the research is to find out, like, what is brand loyalty like when you look at the numbers when it comes to NASCAR fans?
I think it's as high as any sport out there.
Gotta be, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you get to wear, I can get a Consumer Cellular number 6 shirt and wear it around and be a little billboard.
Yes, 100%. Now, soccer is another one, I guess, and Formula One to a degree, but I don't think you see anything like the loyalty of NASCAR fans. I mean, it is a koozie, it is a t-shirt, it is a bumper sticker. It is reaching out to us and saying, we would love to put your wrap on our car. I don't think you're going to see that in many other sports.
I don't think many people could afford to do it in Formula One with all the crazy companies like Rolex, and that's certainly something cool companies, but I'm not going to go out there and buy it, right? I'm not going to go out and get Consumer Cellular like I would with Consumer Cellular, as opposed to what they're trying to sell with Richard Mille and all that stuff with Formula One. So it's way more accessible. And I think because of that, the brand loyalty is real and it's really cool. It's great to talk to you. Enjoy this weekend and tell everybody how they can get online and get hooked up. And is there local branches? Do they go online? How do people get Consumer Cellular?
Yeah, so go online, consumercellular.com. That's the best way to find out more about the company. If you are in Arizona, we have a bunch of stores in the greater Phoenix area. So you can check those out. And like I said at the beginning, you can call our US-based call centers and find out more there as well. And that's 1-888-FREEDOM. Pretty easy to remember.
1-888-FREEDOM. You guys are a super red, white, and blue company, extremely patriotic, very, very true to this country. And I really think that our fans at RFK are going to appreciate that. And they're going to love what you guys have to offer at Consumer Cellular. Carter, enjoy the weekend. And thanks a lot for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on, Chris.
All right, great to talk to Carter Nance from Consumer Cellular. That's the end of our show today. I want to thank the great people at RFK for helping us out as always. Kevin Woods, Brandon Lee, Elijah Burke, Thomas Burfield, amongst others. Just a great crew we have. Termis is pretty good for them too. behind the scenes there in Concord, North Carolina. Great show today. It is Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. I'm Chris Childers for SiriusXM NASCAR Radio.